area. We are going to talk to you about this trip that we have never operated before in 2018. It's called the Circumnavigation of Hokkaido, Japan's wild island. And over the next 20 to 30 minutes, we're going to take you through the program, and we are going to let you know what you can expect to see, where you're going to go, and how you're going to travel. This is the latest. This webinar is the latest in a series that we have collaborated on with Zegrahm Expeditions. And right now, I'd like to introduce Victor Emmanuel.
Well, I'm delighted to be here and get a chance to talk to you about Hokkaido. I've been there several times. It is absolutely a wonderful part of Japan. It's one of the least populated parts, has some of the most spectacular scenery and most interesting birds. And I particularly enjoy going there in the spring when the cherry blossoms, wild cherries, were blooming up on the hillside. And that was very special. But to see the red-crowned cranes breeding was one of the highlights of my birding career. And so I encourage you to go on this trip. It's a great way to see Hokkaido, one of the most interesting birds of the world.
Okay, so when we host these webinars, I'm a big fan of showing the route map here of the cruise. And what you're looking at here is indeed the trip route. I will be referring to this throughout the presentation. But before I get started, what I want to do here is, well, I'm going to go ahead and lay the route out for you, and then I'm going to explain what makes this so special beyond what Victor has already described. You will start in Tokyo, of course, which is the capital of Japan, as we know. From Tokyo, you will take a bullet train, the famous Shinkansen, across to Niigata, and then from there we will board the ship, and we will head north through the Sea of Japan and arriving in Hokkaido in the Sapporo Otaru area. From there, we will perform a circumnavigation of the island of Hokkaido in a clockwise direction. First going north along the west coast, making a side trip to Sakhalin Island, which is, of course, controlled and administered by Russia. From Sakhalin, we will drop back down to the north coast of Hokkaido around Abashiri before completing our circuit around the east and then south coast of the island, ultimately working our way back down to the quote-unquote Japanese mainland before finishing the trip in Tokyo. Now, what I want to do here, first of all, is I want to introduce two gentlemen who will figure prominently in this program. Typically, I like to say a few words about the staff at the end of the presentation, but in this case, I want to lead with this because there are a number of things that make this trip so special. But in particular, it's really important to point out that this is a trip that was designed by a birder for birders. And in this case, I'm talking about Mark Brazil. Mark is the man at the top of the screen, the top image of the screen on the left. He is a longtime member of Zegrahm's expedition staff. Mark is a very accomplished ornithologist. He has written a field guide, The Birds of East Asia, which is one of the most important field guides to the birds of that region. He is well prepared. He's an excellent public speaker, and he's an authoritative voice on ornithology. Victor and I have both had the pleasure of traveling with Mark before. We endorse him highly. We completed a Bering Sea trip with Mark several years ago. Under Mark there is a picture of David Wolf. David is going to be the event leader on this trip, and David has been all over the world. More specifically, he's birded a number of locations in Asia, and he has years and years of experience birding Alaska and the North Pacific region. And so between these two men, we think that you're going to be in very good hands. You're going to be with some expert leaders. We're confident that you could not be out in the field with two better trip leaders. Later on, toward the end of the program, I will circle back to the rest of the expedition staff. But again, I did want to take an opportunity here to introduce Mark and David. Now, again, getting back to the map, the route that I just outlined a moment ago, it's worth looking at again with this context of Mark's involvement in designing this program. Mark Brazil lives in Hokkaido. He's married to a Japanese lady. And so he is intimately familiar with the culture of Hokkaido as well as the best natural areas. And so for that reason, we are really high on what we think, on the potential that this trip has. So now, again, as I said, we're going to go ahead and start in Tokyo. Once you get to Tokyo, you will have a morning where you will do a tour and lunch before boarding the bullet train to Niigata. From Niigata, we will make our way up through the Sea of Japan, but our first, or I should say with an eye to our first location in Hokkaido, which is Sapporo and Otaru. Now, Sapporo happens to be the island capital of Hokkaido, and Otaru is the port city that services it. And so upon arrival in Sapporo, we will have a full day here, and we'll have an opportunity to join in a couple of different excursions. One, for those that are more interested in the history, the culture, the sightseeing opportunities, we will offer a city tour. For those whose interest is to be out birding and doing natural history, we will have a birding expedition offered around Otaru. For those that go into Sapporo, of course, one of the real attractions is an opportunity to go into the fish and seafood market, which it's so prominent that it actually occupies an entire block in terms of a city block in terms of the size. So those who will go into the city will have an opportunity to enjoy this very authentic experience, in addition to seeing some of the other sites of Sapporo. Those who choose to participate in the birding option around Otaru, we present. Here's kind of an enticement for you. This collage of birds here are species that we have a good chance to see, but it's only representative of the great many birds that are possible here in this part of Japan. But let me just go ahead and run through these birds in case you're wondering what you're looking at here. Starting from the top left, going right, we have the Japanese bush warbler, the very beautiful blue and white flycatcher, the exceptionally beautiful narcissus flycatcher to the right, the black-eared kite to the right, and then from left to right on the bottom row, we have the brown-eared bulbul, the Japanese grosbeak, hawfinch, and great spotted woodpecker. All birds that are possible, even likely, on your birding outing this morning. From Otaru, we will get back on the ship, and we will spend the next couple of days working our way up the western side of Hokkaido, visiting a series of islands. The first of these is going to be Turi and Rishiri Island, which we will spend, between those two islands, we will spend a full day before continuing on to Ribun Island. Turi Island is so famous in this area because it's the site of some huge colonies of breeding seabirds. As a matter of fact, Turi Island hosts the world's largest colony of breeding rhinoceros auklets. But there are other birds here too that will certainly be of high appeal to the birders and natural history enthusiasts in the group, including such species as the ancient murrelet in the top right, slaty-backed gull in the bottom right, and of course the very special spectacled guillemot, a bird that is essentially endemic to Japan and areas around it, including the Sea of Japan and the Sea of Okhotsk. In the bottom left, you see people on zodiacs. This is how you will approach the island, and this is how you will do your birding. Zodiacs are these highly durable craft, these small craft that allow closer access to these sites that are otherwise too small or inhospitable for the larger ship. And so you will board Zodiacs, and you will spend some time cruising the shore of Turi Island for seabirds and other birds. Later in the day, you will visit Rishiri Island, which is a beautiful volcanic island that rises right from the sea. It's referred to occasionally as Rishiri Fuji because it's said to resemble Mount Fuji. And here we'll have several hours for opportunities for birding, hiking, photography. And you can see here, this is a nice representation of the landscapes and some of the wildlife. These beautiful lush forests, flower-filled fields. We will be birding the whole time, of course. This male Siberian ruby throat, pictured at the top of the screen here, is a special bird. And then, of course, for mammals, the little Siberian chipmunk below it is a possibility. And again, this is all representative of what you will have a chance to see here. Continuing north, we will then come to Ribun Island, along with Rishiri Island. This is included in the Rishiri Ribun Sarobetsu National Park. This is a beautiful stretch of the offshore waters of Japan where you will have opportunities for hiking, birding. This island is especially known for its displays of spring and summertime wildflowers. Essentially uninhabited, we'll have the island to ourselves. So that's a lot to look forward to. The photographers in the group will have no problem entertaining themselves with these iconic volcanic Pacific Island shots, along with wildflowers and so on. From Ribun Island, we will head northeast a very short distance to Sakhalin Island. And although Sakhalin is controlled by Russia, we do have the ability to go ashore there, visit the island capital of Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk. We will come into port at the coastal community of Korsakov. And once we get to Sakhalin, as is often the case throughout this trip, people will have a choice of activities that they choose to engage in. One will be a city tour of Yuzhno-Sakhalin. The other will be an opportunity to go birding down in different parts of the south end of the island, probably in fairly close proximity to the ship. Those who are more curious about the island capital, those who are more interested in the cultural aspects of this, will have a chance to visit an Orthodox church, the regional museum and market, and also attend a cultural performance of Cossack song and dance. For the birders, Sakhalin Island offers plenty of wide open space. You will be immersed in a variety of habitats and ecosystems, all of which are quite birdy. Featured here are two species of birds that would be of especially high interest to us: the white-tailed eagle, the beautiful white-tailed eagle, and also the little diminutive Japanese pygmy woodpecker. But really, in the company of Mark and David, you're going to be seeing lots of birds at the peak time of the year. Mid and late May, all the migrants, the summertime residents, are back on territory. The birds will be in full song, and there's a lot of habitat in which to support an attractive array of species. And just as a sampling of other things that you might see here, besides these two birds, are black-tailed gull, oriental turtle dove, black-browed leaf warbler, black-faced bunting, long-tailed rosefinch, all appealing birds, and all featured in Mark Brazil's Birds of East Asia, I might add. From Sakhalin, we will return to Hokkaido, and we will explore parts of the north coast. The next general area of exploration where we will spend time is Abashiri, along the northeast coast there, and the nearby Shiratoko Peninsula. Once we get to Abashiri, we will again, for those, coastal Japan is famous for its markets, and you will have a chance, if you haven't done it already, or one market is not enough, You will have a chance to visit one of the coastal markets. We will also have a chance to those who participate in the city tour will also have a chance to go on a nature excursion not far inland. And you can just see here are more dramatic examples of the beautiful scenery of Hokkaido, the volcanic landmarks, Lake Kusaro, just a gorgeous inland lake, and the sulfur springs of Mashu and Iwo. Now, this photo of Iwo, of course, is a wintertime scene. However, at the time of our visit, the snow will be gone, but we wanted to include this slide again to just sort of underscore the volcanic features of the island and of this field trip. The birders, those who are more interested in birding and wildlife, will go a short distance to the east to the coastal region of Utoro, where you will embark on a cruise, a morning-long cruise along the coast. The spectacled guillemot, although we will have chances to see it previously, this part of the Hokkaido coastline is especially well known for having higher numbers of this bird. And again, because it's practically endemic to Japan, we will make a real effort to see this species, in addition to myriad other seabirds and wildlife, the white-tailed eagle again, slaty-backed gull. And this area of Utoro is also especially well known for its population of brown bears. And, you know, your trip to Hokkaido may not be complete unless you've had a chance to see the big, beautiful coastal brown bears that occur here. From Utoro and Abashiri, we will go a short distance to the northeast. Right where my cursor is, we will explore the Shirotoko Peninsula. And it's this little thin projection of land that comes off the northeast coast here of the island. We will be offering a couple of opportunities, again, underscoring the multi-dimensional theme of this trip. Those who are more interested in a cultural excursion will have a chance to visit the Hokkaido Museum of Northern Peoples, or you'll have a chance to join a birding and natural history excursion to Lake Abashiri and the Komaba Kinohiroba Forest Reserve. Here is the Shirotoko Peninsula again and Lake Abashiri. Here is the Forest Reserve. And, you know, these deer, cute, they look like Bambi, but this is the very special Sika deer. It is a native animal. And also you'll have chances to see the red fox, which is an endemic subspecies. But in addition, there are an array of other bird possibilities here. I mean, you cannot look at this habitat and come away from this, you know, not sort of intrigued by what birds that occur here. Things like gray bunting, Japanese accentor, all possible here at the Kinohiroba Forest Reserve. Now, coming around the end of the island, I'm going to back up just a second here to the map. When we come around the Shirotoko Peninsula, we follow sort of a winding cruise route around the end of the island. This is called the Numoro Channel. And the Numoro Channel is famous for its concentrations of marine life. Several species of whales are possible: orca, minke whale, humpback whale, northern fur seal, and that doesn't even begin to address all the different seabird possibility of auklets and shearwaters and storm petrels and things that are found in these offshore waters here. Coming around the end of the island, our next stop will be at Kushiro. A few minutes ago, when we started this presentation, Victor referred to the red-crowned cranes, the iconic red-crowned cranes, or Japanese cranes. We know them through wildlife documentaries. We know them through just Japanese culture. And we will have a full day here in the Kushiro Marsh. And this marsh happens to be the largest wetland preserve in Japan. It is a national park, and it also supports a population of some 1,500 cranes.
I had the privilege of going there with Peter Matheson and Robert and Birgit Bateman, and Peter wrote a wonderful book called The Birds of Heaven about the cranes, and we got to see the Japanese cranes at this site, the Kushiro Marsh, with a chick that they were feeding. So one of the top moments of my birding life.
Absolutely. Really one of the most beautiful birds in the world. Of course, though, this marsh, given the habitat, given the time of year, there's a lot more to see here than only cranes. And examples, let me just give you sort of an example, a representation again of other birds that are possible. Starting from left to right, the bull-headed shrike. In this top center, the Latham's snipe. The top right, the eastern spot-billed duck. Below that, the Eurasian wryneck, which is a widespread Eurasian bird, a woodpecker-like bird. Down in the bottom center, common pochard, which our North American audience will recognize as being similar to a redhead or a canvasback, but a Eurasian bird. And of course, there are other animals around, other wildlife. Again, we're back to our red fox here, which is an endemic form.
Another bird that I saw there that was just stunning was the mandarin duck. I mean, it's a widespread bird, but we had a pair of them that were just right in the road, and we could almost walk up to them.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. And so it's special not just to see these birds, but to see them in such a famous and beautiful location. Later in the day, everyone will have the opportunity to visit the Kushiro City Museum for a chance to learn about the indigenous culture of Hokkaido, this part of the island. From Kushiro, we will get back on the ship, and this time we will cruise down towards the southern, a couple of locales on the southern part of the island, the area of Muroran, and then from Muroran to Hakodate. Muroran is famous for its scenery. Lake Toya, which is part of the Shikoku Toya National Park, is a UNESCO Global Geopark. We will spend a day here traveling around, birding, of course, but also just taking in the dramatic volcanic scenery, the beautiful lakes, the expansive forests, truly beautiful stuff. Here is a shot of the distant Shawa Shinzan volcano in the far distance, but these big grand vistas which characterize the area. And again, some of we will be birding through the whole time. Here's a couple of things that we might see: the russet sparrow. This is a female russet sparrow in the top right. Below that, the black-browed reed warbler. Again, just purely representative of what you will see here. From Muroran, we will continue on to Hakodate, which will be our last port of call in Hokkaido. Hakodate is the first port in Japan that was open to foreign trade, which occurred back in 1854. And so there is a strong historical component to this. And one of the treats, kind of a neat activity, will be a chance to ride a cable car to the top of Mount Hakodate. So you'll have a chance to look out on the city and the surrounding landscapes.
Barry mentioned the indigenous culture, and of course the Ainu people were there very early on, before the rest of Japan was settled by people that came from other parts of Asia. And there you'll be learning about the Ainu.
Absolutely, they are also. I neglected to mention that, but they are that their culture is featured at the Kushiro City Museum. Now, from Hakodate, we will then engage in the final steps of the trip, where we come back down to the main island of Honshu on our way back to Tokyo. We will make a stop in Akita. We have a number of interesting cultural activities available here, including a visit to Senshu Park, which was built from the ruins of a 400-year-old samurai castle, as well as an opportunity to visit the city's Hirano Art Museum. And there will be a chance to see beautiful Lake Tozawa, which is the deepest lake in Japan. Coming back to Tokyo, we will disembark the ship in Niigata. We will board the bullet train, which is always a sort of a source of fascination for those of us who do not live with bullet trains. We will take the bullet train back to Tokyo, where we will then have the majority of the day. And for a grand finale, people will have a choice of visiting the Meiji Shrine and other important historical points of interest, or join a final birding trip to Kasai Rinkai Koen Park, which is along the coast and boasts a seabird sanctuary. Now, when you look at this trip, you might be wondering, what will be your method of transportation? Well, here you are looking at it, the lovely 100-guest Caledonian Sky. This is a ship that Victor and I have both been on. It's one of Zegram's regular vessels. It is a beautiful ship. At only 100 passengers, you have enough people to keep the ship, to keep it nice and diverse, yet without losing any of the intimacy that comes with a small party trip.
And one of the great advantages of seeing a place like Hokkaido by ship is that you're not changing hotels day by day and driving. You're settled into your room, and that is your home for the duration of this trip. You're settled in, and you can relax and be there and then get off of these various ports. And also you have the chance from the ship always to see seabirds.
Yeah, and also, what I want to talk about with the Caledonian Sky is that this is an all-suite vessel, meaning all of the staterooms are suite and all have ocean views. Here is a look at the ship inside and out. On top is a row of 3 images that give you a good idea of what the interior ship is like. The public areas, the top left is a lounge, the public lounge. The top right is the dining room. Top center is the top viewing deck of the ship. So you can see if you're up there, you'll have unobstructed views. And then, of course, down below are a couple of examples of the bedrooms or the cabins. And they're quite lovely. They're spacious. I don't think any of us would have a difficult time calling this home for a couple of weeks. Early on at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about David Wolf and Mark Brazil. However, it certainly takes a lot more than those guys to make this trip work. And here we'd like to share with you other members of the Zegrahm staff. We have worked with Zegrahm for a number of years. Their staff is first rate, from their expedition leader, who in this case is Mike Moore, to the other people who join the trip to add girth to the different, in the form of different disciplines. There's a geologist, Tom Buchanan, who Victor and I have cruised with before in the Bering Sea, Rich Pagan, a marine biologist, and other staff members. We keep talking about what makes this trip so special, the things that give this trip an added oomph to it. And one of those reasons, one of those factors is Mayumi Brazil, who is featured in the bottom left there. That is Mark's wife again. She is a cultural specialist. So, to sum it all up, the circumnavigation of Japan's Wild Island will operate May 19th through June 3rd, 2018, with Vent tour leader David Wolf. Vent has reserved an allotment of 18 people on board the ship. If you have any questions, if you'd like to learn even more about the program, we'll have you please direct your questions to Patrick Swaggerty. Patrick can be reached either by email, patrick@ventbird.com, or by calling our office, either of these phone numbers here. And again, we just want to wrap up by talking about how the appeal that this trip will have for a variety of travelers. For those of you whose primary interest is birding and natural history, we can't think of a better way of visiting Japan. But if you are someone who is more interested in the cultural components of the trip, or perhaps you travel with somebody who their interest is not so much birding and nature oriented, but more historically, culturally based, then here again, this trip represents a wonderful opportunity.
And we've had great interest in this trip, and Nick has sold half of the space that we have reserved on the ship. And so we hope that you will sign up for the remaining spaces.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you guys. That was a great presentation. I would also like to add to everyone that this is an all-inclusive cruise, so everything's taken care of. Gratuities, all of your touring options are included, meals on shore and on the ship with beer and wine included, transfers, the onboard lecture series. Basically, once you get on board, you don't have to take your wallet out again. So I've also attached a couple of handouts to this presentation. One is the trip brochure, and one is the birding list that Mark Brazil compiled from a recent Hokkaido birding tour that he did this year. So please go ahead and download either of those if you are interested in them. And of course, you can always contact Vent if you have any further questions, or you can type them in on the screen and they can answer them now. So it looks like we don't have any questions. So I just want to thank everyone for attending today. And yeah, hopefully this has piqued your interest to explore wild Hokkaido. Thank you very much.